Hi, welcome back to An Hour with Crowder with me, your host, Crowder. Like, share, subscribe, and comment. And if you're already a subscriber, go ahead and ding the bell so that you can get all of my latest podcast interviews. Today, we got Eric Ramsey, part of In Solidarity, DFW. Yes. Another good-ass guest. Hi.
How's it going?
Good. Shit. So, basically, I brought you in because as me and you was talking off air, a lot of stuff that's been going on in the protests has died down in the media. So I've just always been wondering what's going on with that. Because a lot of people, some people are still kicking it up on social media, but the news isn't covering it.
No. We're definitely still out in the streets. The other day we shut down Highway 75 for 5 to 6 minutes. We had a big protest Sunday. We marched to DPD HQ in downtown Dallas. We've got some actions coming up. Actually, yesterday, we messed around with a Whataburger in Dallas.
Yeah, I seen that you had messed around with Whataburger. Yeah. And what was actually, for the people that don't know what's going on, because I barely knew until you was in Facebook and you was like, even Black Lives Matter at Whataburger. Yes. And I was like, wait a minute, what the fuck going on here?
Black Lives Matters even at Whataburger.
So what was the situation that happened for you guys to go up there and do that?
So in Fort Worth, a Whataburger there, I don't know the exact location, but it's in a predominantly black neighborhood. So they have a worker named Makiya. She was wearing a face mask and it had Black Lives Matter on it. And, she'd been wearing it to our understanding for several weeks. No issues, and then all of a sudden some white lady decides to come into this Whataburger. She has, she gets offended, she has an issue with it, she calls corporate, and next thing Makiya knows, she's getting fired. She actually tried to resign, and her manager was essentially like, nah, you're good, we don't need you anymore, bye.
Okay, so she ended up getting fired or she quit?
She got fired. Well, I think technically it was it's fired because they told her that they were letting her go, and then she tried to say, well, can I work out my 2 weeks, and they were like, no, you're done. Oof. So yeah, that's a real tricky situation, because it's like you can do what you want to until you get inside of an establishment. Right. Like, I can wear shorts until I get to my job, and then I have to wear pants. Right. So, yeah, we all want to say, and me personally, I think that it was stupid for someone to come in and be offended by just some letters on a mask. But it's like, okay, I'm looking at it from an unbiased standpoint. Right. And first of all, I'm just like, why couldn't she just have taken off the mask for that quick second that lady was there? But from an unbiased standpoint, you kind of got to go by the rules that you have at a job. But the thing is, she didn't even really give her a chance to do it. That's the thing, because like I said, she, for all intents and purposes, Makiya had been wearing that mask for, several weeks. She said that she'd even, seen their district manager. He or she had no issue with it. The manager, I'm supposing up to that point, had not said anything about it. So you would think, if there had not been any previous issues with this mask, you would think the right thing to do is, hey, we understand, Black Lives Matter, but, maybe this job isn't the right place to make that statement. So instead of ending her employment in the midst of a pandemic when millions have already lost their jobs, unemployment benefits are almost out.
Yeah, burnt the fuck out.
Yeah, you would think that they would, ask her to simply put on another mask. And I mean, let's be honest here. Black lives do matter, and I think in this particular situation, the company had the opportunity to really stand by their employee, and I mean, like you said, they could have simply asked her to wear a different mask, but instead they terminated her. So
yeah, it's like, and I don't want to be like one side or the other, but it's been a big thing with both races, white and black, giving out, like, we want to talk about white privilege, but let's not act like it hasn't been a lot of black privilege too. Just like that situation that happened when the black girl bumped into the white lady, and then like they started kind of getting rowdy with her, and it got kicked up to a notch that it didn't need to be at. And basically what's going on, I feel, is that both parties, white and black, is taking everything out of order. It's all lives matter for the white people, and it's Black lives matter for the black people, and everybody's taking everything up a notch because, well, especially like in certain demographics of the state. Like if it's predominantly white, then they're taking it up a notch with the all lives matter. If it's predominantly black and you got some white shields with you, it's going there. Yeah. And I just feel like everybody's taking advantage of this situation instead of seeing the whole thing in a whole, which is we want justice for these people that have died.
And see, like I'm not gonna sit here, I can't sit here, and talk about, black privilege because obviously I'm not black, but
yeah, but it is black privilege.
We do have to stop here and take a look. This country was built on the backs of black and indigenous people.
Definitely.
And every system in this country has been built up to further and protect the interests of white people. Yeah. When it comes to police brutality, black African Americans, they only make up 13 to 15% of the overall population in this country, yet they're killed at a much higher rate than white people. Yes, white people are killed by police, but when you stop and look at the numbers in terms of population percentage, it's disproportionate. Yeah. So when you have a smaller portion of the population being killed at a much higher rate, and let's stop and look at some of the instances in which some of those black individuals have been killed, like Breonna Taylor, for instance, who was murdered in her bed, shot 8 times by police officers who were fulfilling a no-knock, whatever they call it, no-knock warrant.
Yeah.
Months later, we still have no justice for Breonna Taylor. So, and then you have the situation now where the poor white kid, and I cannot remember his name for the life of me, but he was shot and murdered by his African American neighbor a couple days ago. Cannon, yes. Yeah. His murderer was arrested same day, next day. He's already in jail
for life.
Yeah,
I see a lot of people trying to spin that around. Like, where's the justice for him? And I'm like, dude, and this fucking killer went to jail the next day.
And that's exactly the sort of lens that we have to look at it through, because anytime a white person is harmed at the hands of an African American, you best believe there's going to be justice. But when the roles are reversed, like Ahmaud Arbery, for instance, it took 3 months.
Yeah, we didn't even know
3
about
months
that.
For his murderers to even be arrested.
And that's only because someone put it out there. Yeah, just imagine if they never put it out there.
And so when we talk about white privilege, we have to sort of step back and look. Like there are instances all over this country since this country was created, that proves this country was not made with the intent of all people being equal.
Of course.
It was made with the intent of white people being equal and everybody else being less than. And so that's, like, for me and for most of us, and don't get me wrong, there's always some people in everything that, might not have the best intentions.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to sit here and say that everybody in the Black Lives Matter movement, has the right intentions, because we've seen time and time again, people within our own movement that just want to get out there and, start set shit on fire, graffiti, throw things at cops, et cetera, et cetera. And, me as a white person, it isn't my job to police the anger of black people. But when I go to these protests, I go out there to, defend black and brown bodies. I was shot by DPD defending one of my friends. Damn. My other purpose is to simply be out there, to help live stream, control the narrative, because we see all the time, media spinning what's actually happening. And that's why.
And it's not just on news covers either. It's on podcasts. Yep. They were talking about one of the podcasts that I listen to is DJ Rick. And he has this young lady on there, I think named Amina, and she kind of does a podcast with them, and they was over there talking about the situation with the machete and the dude trying to defend the bar. And she was like, yeah, they
Here in
killed.
Dallas?
Yeah. And they was like, yeah, they killed him. And I was like, no, bitch, I was there.
Yeah, I was about to say, we were there.
Yeah.
So.
And that didn't happen. And I tried to go to the comments to like type it in and say, hey, that did not happen. I'm from Dallas, Texas. That didn't happen like that. And it turned out like they turned off the comments.
Yeah, we literally see that happening at these actions all over the country. We see, you know, people taking one situation and twisting it for whatever their means might be. And like speaking back on the incident here in Dallas, like, you know, we were there, we saw what happened. You know, the man was swinging at protesters. Granted, whatever he may have been defending or thinking he was defending, whatever he, you know, thought he was defending, but sorry.
No, you're good. Yeah, just get a little bit closer.
You know, we saw that, you know, he was out there with the intent to cause harm. And, you know, if protesters hadn't bum rushed him and pulled that machete away from him, I mean, don't get me wrong. Do I agree with the extent to which they took it? No. I don't think that they should have beat him to an inch of his life, but
he shouldn't have been out there swinging a damn machete.
Exactly.
What do you think is going to happen when you swing a machete at a mob?
And it's like when you look back at, you know, Garrett in Austin who lost his life, you know, we see, you know, first of all, in Texas, it's open carry.
Yeah.
We have people on our side have just as much right to go to a protest and carry as people on the opposite side do. That being said, you know, there were multiple eyewitness accounts. There are multiple photos. You know, his wife was a quadriplegic. They were both well known in the community. So he was there to, you know, support his wife at the actions, defend her.
Yeah.
And so when his murderer barrels his car into protesters, of course he's gonna, you know, step in between his wife and this vehicle and other protesters to see what's going on, to see if he can protect people. And, you know, the narrative got twisted because he has a gun. The narrative got twisted. Oh, he shot first. Oh, he pointed his gun into the vehicle. Oh, he did this. Oh, he did that. But we have eyewitness testimony on the ground with photographic evidence that shows he had his gun pointed at the ground. He never lifted it. He simply approached the vehicle, you know, was like, hey, you need to back the hell up.
Yeah.
And, you know, guy felt threatened or whatever, and Garrett lost his life.
Yeah. I seen that story too, but I want to take it back to the black privilege because, of course, you said that I can't speak on it. I'm not black, so I don't know. And this is what I mean by black privilege in a protest. You just said that, okay, I'm not there to police black people when they get irate and they start to riot and all of that stuff. And that's what I'm saying. That's that black privilege in this situation that a lot of people don't want to talk about. Because if you're doing something wrong, then you think you're supposed to get away with it. And not everybody, not the people out there that's actually going to go protest and do things the right way and cause awareness to this situation. But the people that's just going out there, black people going out there and tearing up shit, and because they have, you know, shields like you that isn't going to police them and isn't going to, you know, get angry at them for doing what they're doing, then they feel justified to do that.
I will say, you know, at all the actions I've seen, like I said, you know, there's always going to be, quote unquote, a bad apple or two. But I've seen multiple instances where, yeah, you know, maybe there is a black person or two that are engaging in those activities. But there's always more black people that are like, hey,
yeah, I was one of them. Yeah, I was one of them that just, hey, stop.
And
stop throwing shit at the Chase building.
And that, like, we have to look at it from a wider perspective, you know, like, it's, the overall movement is not about that small handful of detractors. It's much bigger than that.
Yeah, but it takes away. When you're tearing up shit and you're doing this and doing that and you stray away from the crowd that's actually doing things right, because it goes to that saying, everybody, you'll do 99 things good and you do one thing bad and they'll always remember that bad thing. Well, those people that's tearing up shit, whether they're white or black, are are degenerating you guys' cause and march.
I will say, you know, the fight that we're in right now, like, it's not pretty. Like, it's not supposed to be pretty. You know, we're fighting for equal rights. We're fighting for Black lives. We're fighting to tell our government that we deserve better. And, you know, it's, you know, we jokingly refer to it as a revolution, but it's, when you stop and like take a look at it, it's really not. We're trying to change the very fabric of our country. And, you know, that's not always pretty. You know, ugly things happen. And I've known a lot of Black organizers that when, you know, they try to be strategic. You know, if you want to destroy something that has value to the system. Mm-hmm. Don't destroy something like, for instance, if you're in a predominantly Black or minority area, leave it the fuck alone.
Yeah.
Like, don't fuck with people's livelihoods. But if it's intrinsically tied to the system that we're fighting against.
Yeah, but you're not going to know that. You're not going to know those things, because if a Black person buys a franchise and it's a franchise of KFC, then you automatically think, oh shit, that's the corporation. Right. Let's fuck it up.
Well, when I say tied to the system, like, take a look at Portland, for instance. You know, when they firebombed the police department, like, that's what I mean. Like, there are monuments to white supremacy into the system that, you know, deserve to go. But, you know, I will say I agree, you know, when it comes to messing with livelihoods, more so the livelihoods of Black and brown people, don't mess with that, because they're already at a disadvantage when compared to white people.
Yeah, but that's what I was saying, is that you're not going to know that because you don't have the paperwork on it, and people just started putting out, we support Black lives, or they have the Black Lives Matter flag on there, and most of them don't even fucking support it. They just don't want their shit tore up.
And that's why, like, I've seen some organizers, you know, when you're an organizer, you know, you have to do your research, and that's why I've seen a lot of organizers, you know, target specific areas that are known to be, you know, predominantly white capitalistic areas, as opposed to areas that are more predominantly Black or minority owned. So when you, like, there's always a method to the madness. It doesn't always seem that way. And let me retract. There's not every single time, but for the most part, there's a method to the madness.
Yeah.
Like, if, like, I've seen organizers, you know, like I said, you know, if you absolutely want to be destructive, this is the area to do so. Like, not necessarily saying we condone it.
Yeah.
But this will occupy the cops' time more. This will hit the system harder, et cetera, et cetera.
So why do you think that the news isn't covering it?
I think, you know, it's just, you know, we're in the middle of an election year. We still have coronavirus running rampant out here. Historically speaking, anything that pertains to Black people has always sort of taken a backseat to everything else.
And it's weird that you say that, because George Floyd was front page news for like fucking 3 weeks.
And that's because his death sparked such an outrage that it led to we're on what, day 76, day 77 of protests now since George Floyd died.
Yeah.
And I can't say for sure why exactly it was George Floyd that was, I guess, the sparking point for this. Because there have been plenty of deaths before George Floyd that had potential to do this. You know, you have Sandra Bland, you have Jordan Edwards, Ahmaud Arbery. I think Ahmaud Arbery's death was sort of like a preface to George Floyd, and then you had Ahmaud Arbery, you had Breonna Taylor, and then you had George Floyd. Yeah. So I think it was just like a chain of events. It was like bam, 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 and I think it was just so much that, you know, it just, you know, lit that fire. And, you know, it's unfortunate, but it's good that it did so, because, like I said, we're on day 76 or so now of protests, and we're still going at it. We've got actions planned for weeks from now. So, I mean, the object of the game now is simply keeping the momentum going as best as we can, because, like, one of the issues we run into, especially here in Texas, is just that it's so damn hot. For instance, at our protest on Sunday,
I don't see how y'all do it.
Yeah, our protest Sunday, it was triple digit heat. It was like 110. And granted, our route, we only marched a mile there and a mile back. So roughly it was like 2 miles.
Where did y'all march to?
We marched from City Hall to Dallas Police Headquarters and back.
And see, that's where I think that y'all should do majority of the protests there, because, and we're going to go into this just for a little bit, but I think that that's the place that y'all should be at.
Yeah.
Those places, because the Dallas Police Department is the people that have the quotas and have the stuff that they have to do to have these situations where people die and people get wrongly justified for things. And the City Hall is where y'all can actually make change on a lower level scale, which is the most important, because most people say, go to D.C. Yeah, you're going to fucking go to D.C.
Yeah.
And you got a job tomorrow and you fucking get on a plane.
Can't just hop on a plane.
Yeah, you just can't hop on a plane. And even if you get there, then what the fuck? The president's going to say, hey, hold that call. I got to go out here and talk to all these protesters. It doesn't happen like that. No. You got to do things on a smaller scale. And I used to think like that. Like, they should just go to Washington, D.C. But then when I seen that flight, though.
There is actually a march on Washington planned for next week.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I think D.C. does have a 14-day quarantine in effect for anybody coming from Texas. So obviously I can't go. But speaking back on the march from City Hall to Dallas, there's like I said, speaking back on the method to the madness, like there's a reason, we marched from City Hall to Dallas HQ, and when we got to DPD, we talked about defunding the police and what that looks like, what investing in communities look like. So like my organization in particular and several of the organizations that we work with, we really, not only do we want to continue to disrupt systems and make people uncomfortable, but we also want there to be some sort of like educational aspect to it. Like, we don't want to just sit here and say defund DPD without you understanding why we say defund DPD. We want why defund DPD?
Yeah.
Why invest in communities? Because police officers, they're not trained, they're not trained to deal with mental health cases. They're not trained to deal with homelessness. They're not trained to deal with drugs or anything like that. When you stop and look at it, police are a business. Like, they've got quotas to meet. They have.
I think that's where it should start right there.
Right.
Quotas.
Yeah.
Because we see it all the time. Just like, think about telemarketing. You're stressing. You're trying to get those fucking numbers. You're itching. You got one more, and one foreign guy that says, "I don't understand you." Click yes. Yeah. And so I think that's the same way with the police department. You get one person going 1 mile over 10 miles per hour. Let's pull them over. And that traffic stop slowly turns into, oh, you're trying to tell me what to do? Right. You're trying to, I'm the authority here. And then that's when it turns left. And it all starts with just that quota shit. Get rid of that shit.
Like, when we say defund the police, we also mean, when we say defund the police, we don't mean, we're not saying let's go back to the Wild West. Let's not, have a bunch of vigilantes running around out here in bat costumes. That's not what we're asking. We simply want there to be an end to police militarization. There's no reason police officers should be able to whip out automatic weaponry on protesters. That's where we're practicing our constitutionally protected rights. Like, there's no reason police officers should be able to use that tactic against us. And we also there's this thing called broken windows policing, which is essentially, that the idea that any sign of like loitering or prostitution or graffiti or anything like that, it means that that's a bad area. So cops focus their attentions there, which are predominantly black or brown communities, because you don't see graffiti or prostitution or anything like that in suburban areas.
Yeah.
So when we say defund the police, there's a lot that goes into that, but it essentially means let's invest in the communities. Let's have more social workers that can go out into these communities and deal with mental health calls. Let's have drug rehab counselors that can actually, assist people that have drug addictions instead of just criminalizing them. Let's quit criminalizing homelessness. Let's take some of these downtrodden buildings that we have all over the place, build them up again, and we could solve our homelessness crisis if we cared to, if we allocated the funds to do so.
Yeah, but you know why I don't think that's going to happen? Because it's money in those vacant buildings. I mean, we see it's happening in South Dallas and Oak Cliff, gentrification all over the place. I mean, I've lived in Oak Cliff when I was younger, and the road that I ride down to get to my job, which is also in Oak Cliff, it's been towed up for the longest. And then out of nowhere, they just started paving the road. And I was like, oh, I know what this is. This is gentrification. Yeah. So that pothole been sitting there 15 years, and you just decided to do it now. And this is the reason why I don't think that that's going to happen now. I think that the people are going to have to get together to do it. Because like I said, there's money to be had in those vacant buildings. It's a bunch of rich guys that come in and they don't see much in it, but they see a diamond in the rough.
Right.
And they get it and they scrub it up and it becomes shiny, and then they raise property tax and they get all of those black people out, and then that's that. But if the community got together and did kind of like the Jewish people with PACs, when they do political stuff and get money together and buy that vacant building, and then get people like you to organize and do things in that vacant building, get it all nice and clean, and get it going for homeless people, and actually like a center for everything that you're talking about, because the government doesn't help anyone but themselves.
And that's the thing. It does a lot of the stuff that we want. It does require community organizing. And that's why when we do stuff like this, we really try and engage with the community and educate the community, because, we can't accomplish anything without the power of the people behind us.
Yeah.
And that's why we work so hard to disrupt systems, of capitalism. It just,
it's hard because because first of all, like I said, they're waiting for laws to be changed. These laws have been put in place for years and years and years and years. And you think that a whole bunch of rich white folks or whatever is going to stop doing those laws? No, they don't, because they benefit them. So if you're waiting around for a law to happen, it's not going to happen. That's when you got to jump in. But majority of people don't know what's going on right now. They don't know that y'all are still out there protesting. They don't know that y'all are organizing things to make things better. And it's going to take the community as a whole to get in there and go to City Hall, go to DPD, go to these marches and do that shit, because it's not going to work just with y'all.
That's the problem we've always, it's always been a problem, getting people engaged. And, there are a variety of reasons why people might not want to get engaged, either fear or, they can't fit it into their schedule, or heat or medical reasons, or whatever the issue might be. So that's always been an issue, and it's the same with voting. It's
voting doesn't work. Come on,
let's
be realistic. Voting doesn't work.
It's hard to get people engaged sometimes, and that's something that we've really been trying to look for ways to do better, is to engage people. But the sad fact of the matter is, if they don't want to be engaged, then you're not going to engage them.
Yeah, nothing that you can do about it. But at the beginning of all of this, actually a couple of weeks after everything blew over with George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and all of those people that died, rest in peace, then a lot of people backed out of BLM because of the George Soros thing, being funded by George Soros and all of that stuff. But a lot of people backed out of it because they put a twist on it, and now it was TLM. Trans Lives Matter. So what happened there? How did it get hijacked by Trans Lives Matter?
So it's not so much that it got hijacked by Trans Lives Matter. When we say Black Lives Matter, we mean all Black lives, not just cisgendered Black lives.
So why say Trans Lives Matter? Why couldn't we just go out there with Black Lives Matter?
The problem, and again, it's kind of a touchy subject simply because I'm not Black, but I have one of my closest friends is a Black trans woman, and we've had this conversation before. Transphobia in the Black community, homophobia in the Black community, it's a problem, and it's the same problem that we have in the white community. But we've been to protests where there have been individuals who say Black Lives Matter, and then when confronted with a Black gay man or a Black trans woman, they get weirded out. They don't care, et cetera, et cetera. So when we say Black Lives Matter, again, that has to include all Black lives. You know, it has to include Black gay men. It has to include Black trans women. It has to include Black sex workers, Black trans, like Black everybody. Like all Black lives matter.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. Why put an emphasis on trans?
Because there's
if
a
it's
small
Black,
portion.
because they're Black first.
Right.
No matter what they want to say or do, and I support those people. A lot of people read a lot of my comments, and I get a lot of hate in the gay community for my views about trans people or whatever like that. But at the end of the day, you're Black first. So why put emphasis on trans lives matter when if you're Black, you're clearly in the movement?
Right. Well, you also have to stop and look, you know, Black trans women, you know, they're murdered at an astonishing rate in this country. And, like, you know, I've talked to some Black friends of mine that are within the community, and, you know, they always say they don't always feel welcome within the Black community. So, again, I don't think it's so much of a hijacking as it is a reminder, hey, you know, if we're out here fighting for Black lives, please don't forget that it's not just cisgendered lives that matter. Because like I said, you know, we've been to protests. Like, take, for instance, Tony McDade.
Who is that? For the people that don't know, and me.
A trans man that was murdered by police officers.
What happened there? What was it, like a George Floyd type of thing, and he just got shot down? What was the
I don't
situation
remember,
that happened?
I don't remember the exact circumstances of his death. I mean, unfortunately, there's so many Black people that are murdered by police officers. It's really hard to keep track of every single, you know, circumstance, unfortunately. But, you know, he was misgendered, you know, he was dead named, which for those of you that don't know, dead naming is when you take a trans person and call them by the name they were before they transitioned and became trans. But, you know, there was a whole thing, you know, people wanted Tony McDade's name to be remembered as well, and you have pushback from that. So again, it's more of just a reiteration. Like, if you're out here fighting for Black lives, please don't forget, like, we're not just fighting for Black cisgendered lives. We're fighting for all Black lives. And again, you know, I'm not Black, so I don't want to, you know, speak on the experiences as a whole, but like, I can only talk about the experiences that I've talked to my Black friends that they've told me, and that I've seen. Like, I've been to protests where, you know, like, for instance, one of our chants is Black Lives Matter, Black women matter, Black men matter, Black trans matter, Black gay matter. Like, we'll go through it all. Black children matter, Black families matter, Black hopes matter, Black dreams matter. And, like, I've been to actions where, you know, we'll say Black Lives Matter. You know, you have the crowd behind you, Black Lives Matter. You know, you go through the list, but then you get to Black gay matter, and you have the crowd dies. Like, you have a handful here that say it, and you get to Black trans. Again, same thing, handful that say it. So it's just, I think it just speaks a little bit more to the undercurrent of homophobia and transphobia.
Yeah.
So like I said, when we say Black trans lives matter, it's not so much that it's not that we're trying to co-opt Black Lives Matter. We're just trying to remind those people who might not necessarily care.
Do you believe that they should take a back seat? That trans people should take a back seat to the Black Lives Matter movement?
No, not at all. Especially, you know, because
that was the talk, that, oh, well, you're Black first, so, you know, take a back seat so that we can get Black rights first, and then we'll deal with that.
I think it's hard to just put one person. I think it's hard to put your identity into sort of like a bubble like that, because, yeah, you're Black, and that's one big part of your identity, and there's, you know, struggles that come along with that, but you're trans, and there's a whole other set of struggles that come along with that, and they have to coexist with one another. Like, you're Black, yes, but you're trans too. Like, it's not two separate identities.
So it's like a double struggle.
Right. Like, it's not two separate identities. You're Black and you're trans. You're not just Black first and trans second. Like, it's...
Wait a minute, but you kind of are. Because the first thing that they see, if you're a passing woman or a passing man, and for people that don't know what passing is in trans community, is when you significantly look like a woman after you've transitioned, and men and women think that you're actually a woman. Not actually a woman, I'm sorry, excuse me, but you're a cisgender woman. And when you're a passing man, that you significantly look like a man after you've transitioned, and women and men think that you're a cisgender man born. Yeah, but they are black first, because the first thing that someone sees is that you're black. They don't necessarily look at you. Yeah, they look at you and say, oh, you're a woman, but the thing that's not going to determine if you get a job or not, or if you get chance to get inside the club or not, depending on what neighborhood you're in. It all depends on your skin color at that moment, I think, with certain things.
Right. I think, honestly, it's all a matter of perspective. Like, if you were to ask if, I'm not trans, obviously I'm not black.
God, but you're just hitting low today. You're not trans, you're not black. What you doing on here, Eric?
I think if you were to ask, like, a black trans woman, I personally think they might take offense at the fact, not offense, but they might, I don't really know how someone would react to saying that they're black first, trans second, because being like me, for instance, being a gay white man, yes, I'm gay, and obviously I was born white before, I ever discovered I was gay, but being gay is such a huge part of my identity. Like I said, I have, on the one hand, I have all the privileges afforded to me of being a white man, but then on the other side of that, you have all the struggles that I've had as a gay man. Like, I was ostracized by my family, relentlessly picked on in school. I was homeless for a while. Like there are different struggles there, but they coexist. Like, they're both who I am. Like, I'm a white gay man. So,
yeah, but all of those things that you said was personalized.
Right.
When you're in the street or you're at your job or whatever, they say that if we was to grab you and we was in the office at the water fountain on some The Office shit, then they'd be like, who's Eric? And I'd be like, oh, that the white boy that in the cubicle 3. I wouldn't say, or if I did have to put your sexuality into it, I'd be like, oh, he's the white gay boy or whatever at cubicle 18.
Right.
And I think that if I walked in and they said, oh, who's the Crowder? They'd probably say, oh, she's the black girl in cubicle 14.
And,
black gay girl.
I get what you're saying. I do. But I think it's a matter of perspective, because, like, when you're gay or when you're trans, there's a certain amount of pride in being truthful to who you are.
Yes.
So while
I can
so
relate
while
to that.
I understand what you're saying, like, from an outside perspective, yes, you are black first, you are white first, but to the person, it's much more than that. Like, yeah. I think in that instance, it's a matter of perspective, because from the outside, yeah, a black woman, a white man, but to me, I'm a white gay man, you're a black lesbian woman. So I think it's just a matter of perspective on that. And going back to the Black Lives Matter, Black Trans Lives Matter, yeah. It's not so much trying to co-opt the movement, it's just trying to coexist within a community where there's been historic problematicness, coexisting. Like, it's hard to be a black trans woman or a black gay man. Let's be honest, it's gotten better to be a member of the LGBT community, but it's a struggle from, realizing what you are to, coming to terms with it, making your family be aware of who you are, making them come to terms with it. It's a process. So I think when we say Black Trans Lives Matter, it's more of an effort to make people realize that they coexist within the overall black community. Like, and it's more of an urge for solidarity, to sort of be like, hey, we're in this struggle with you. We have our own struggles, but we are black too. Yeah. We have our struggles associated with being trans. We have our struggles associating being with gay, but we need you guys to recognize that we matter too.
Yeah.
And again, there's been a lot of people that don't see that. And like homophobia is real, transphobia is real. It's not just a problem within the black community. It's a problem in the white community. It's a problem in the Asian community. Like, and again, we've made, with marriage equality, we've made strides, but there are still those who see it as being other or less than.
Yeah, but why do it have to be made in a movement so big as Black Lives Matter?
What do you mean?
So, okay, trans people have their struggles, and I'm not taking away from that, because I would hate to be killed. It's one thing to be killed for your color,
right?
But it's one thing to be killed for how you feel inside. So why make that statement right then and there in a big movement like Black Lives Matter? We're finally getting momentum. We're finally getting the police to realize what we're going through and how they see us as human beings. And then it's kind of like trans people come in the back and say, guess what? We do too.
Right.
And it's like, okay, could you make that on your own time? Because we're all trying to get something going on right now.
Again, like it's not just trans people though that are black trans people that are saying that. Like they're it's allies, it's black gay people, it's there are black people that are doing it as well. And again, it just goes back to the fact that there have been those within the movement that have tried to paint it as being focused on cisgendered.
How has it been any leaders, like any people that are the lead activists of things that's been pushed back?
That's not that I'm aware of, but when you talk about leaders of the BLM, it's kind of hard to talk about leaders because it's such a large movement. I mean, you have the main people that started the BLM movement, but when you stop and think about it, it's not really a cohesive organization. So there's not like we don't have set leaders here in Texas for BLM.
Don't you think that'll make the protests way smoother and better if y'all did have appointed leaders?
I mean, yes and no. I think
if I don't know who the quarterback is of my team and I'm just throwing the ball to the wide receiver, he don't know what to do with that shit.
I think the power in it lies. It's a movement by the people for the people. Like,
okay,
it's not so much as like it like me, for instance. Like I love being on the back. I love being in the background. I don't like so much being front and center when I organize something. Like it's sort of like that. Like being an activist, it's not about clout. It's not about getting your name out there. It's not about being front and center. So in a movement like this, it's about the people. And so by having a leader, like a generally leaderless movement, like it keeps it that way. Like my team, for instance, like we make all decisions together. Like none of us are leaders. We're a group that works together.
Yeah.
So I think an overall movement and again, like I said, there are prominent Black Lives Matter activists, but when you stop and look at the movement as a whole, there's not really like one set leader saying, let's do this, let's do that, organizing actions all over the place. It's sort of like, I don't want to say free for all, but it's like a
organized
bunch of
chaos.
Exactly. It's a bunch of groups coming together for the same cause. And the point of it, the point of the organized chaos is to keep the system on its toes, to disrupt, to, sort of end the complacency, to keep cops working, keep them all over the place.
Okay.
Like, we do what we do to annoy. Like that's,
so that no one won't infiltrate.
Right.
Because if no one knows the next move and everybody's just planning everything on their own and then just give out like the orders as y'all are going, then the cops don't know where or whoever infiltrated, because of course most of those protests has been infiltrated by Antifa and people like that.
Well, Antifa. So Antifa, it's not real. Antifa's not an organization. Antifa is an ideal. So if you agree that our country shouldn't be fascist, like aka like if you disagree with Nazis, then you're by definition you're anti-fascist.
Okay.
Like.
Yeah, but according to the news, Antifa is the people that's tearing up shit.
People, and again, it goes back to sort of what we were talking about off air. You have to sort of do your own research. Yeah. Like when we say Antifa, or when because we don't call ourselves Antifa. That's not, we don't go around saying Antifa meeting at 4. Like, that's not what we do. Like, it's not, Antifa is not an organization. There's not a member list. We don't pay dues. Like, it's an ideal. Like, for instance, take, Donald Trump. When, we're fighting against the displays of fascism that he's shown. And same as, some Germans did back during World War II when they fought against their own people, their own government, because they didn't agree with what was happening. Yeah. That's anti-fascist.
Okay.
Like, it's, and there are people that would consider themselves anarchists, and those are the people who are typically like, fuck the government, fuck society, like, we're just here to cause shit. Like, and that's its own thing. Like, I'm not an anarchist. Like, I agree. I do believe that there has to be systems in place to make society livable. But I think those systems have to be systems that work for everybody. And again, like I said earlier, our country was built on the bodies of Black and Indigenous people, Black and brown people. So the systems that we have, they're outdated. So we have to work at removing those systems and rebuilding, and working towards a country where we don't have to say Black Lives Matter. And when we say Black Lives Matter, that's not us saying white lives matter less. That's not us saying Asian lives matter less. That's just, again, it goes back to the fact that when you stop and look at overall population, African Americans make up a much smaller percentage. So when you look at African American deaths at the hands of police officers versus white people deaths at the hand of police officers, it's disproportionate. So we're fighting for a system that recognizes that Black lives do matter, and we're asking for accountability. We're asking for justice. Like, all too often we see, like, Breonna Taylor, for instance, murdered in her bed, and we still don't have justice for her. Like, it shouldn't take 3 months. It's unacceptable. And we've seen this time and time again where, a Black person or a brown person is murdered by a cop, and the cop just gets a slap on the wrist.
Yeah.
So, like, it's one thing, if the cop truly feared for their lives, but that
but
excuse
you
has
can't
gotten,
prove it.
Yeah, that excuse has gotten so old, because it's like every time a Black person dies, oh, that cop feared for their life. Like, you can't, like, if you're that scared to be a police officer, you shouldn't be a police officer. I'm sorry.
Or you should go to church. But let me ask you about 75. What happened there off 75? For people that don't know, Eric and a couple of his protesters were out there off 75 protesting on the highway, Highway 75.
And there's always going to be people that don't agree with some of the tactics that we use. So what we did is we had a banner drop on the overpass right where we stopped off. The banner said Black Lives Matter every damn day. We stopped traffic. We got out with our signs. I had a megaphone. We took turns chanting. And, of course, it was a highway, so it was loud.
Yeah.
But the point of that is, again, we're seeing now media attention dying down on the movement. So when we do actions like that, it's to reiterate, hey, you might not be seeing us on the news, but we're not going anywhere. So actions like that are really more to let people know that, we're still here, we're still out in these streets, we're still fighting, we're not going anywhere, because, a lot of people think that we need the media coverage to stay strong, to continue, but we don't. Like, the media cannot cover any of my stuff for all I care. I'm still going to be out there. Like, I don't need to be interviewed by the local news affiliate to feel like I've done something. So that's really the point of why we did that. We wanted to disrupt some people's day. Like, we don't, and
that's where I'm going with it.
We don't. So, okay. We don't.
Yeah, let me let you finish.
The point of it is to disrupt people, to disrupt their lives, to make them uncomfortable, to, make them feel for a moment how Black individuals may feel. And, we're not complete assholes. Like, we've been at intersections, we've blocked intersections in the past, and emergency vehicles had to pass through. We're not going to stop those emergency vehicles from getting through. If there's an emergency, we will let that person through. We blocked an intersection once, and the woman, she was in hysterics because she said that she got a call her son had a seizure. We let her through. We're not heartless. We're not assholes completely. Like if someone needs to get through, we're gonna let them through. But if you're just sitting there pissed off because you can't get home to watch, I don't know, Game of Thrones or whatever, like, I'm sorry, you can deal with traffic for a few minutes to understand why we're here.
Yeah, and that's where I was going to get into it. And I'm not going to say I totally disagree with what happened because, like you said, the news is not covering what's going on. Like, I have to go on Facebook and see, hey, is this thing still going on? Yeah, it is. Thank God you're one of my friends on Facebook because I thought it died down. I thought it was over.
Nope, we're still in these streets. We're still out there. You know, like for us, for my group in particular, no, we're not out in the streets every single day.
Yeah.
Our focus now is really about being strategic. Like, we want our actions to mean something. Again, which is why we did the highway shutdown.
Yeah.
Because, you know, it created conversations all over Facebook. It may not have gotten picked up by the news, but people were talking about it.
Well, the news is dead anyways.
Yeah.
Nobody believes them anymore because
Right.
of everything that's going on, all the misinformation about Corona and all
Right.
of that. But my thing about it is, it kind of seems like where's the balance? Because, you know, you go out there on 75, you go to Whataburger, stop the drive-through, and half of those people in line or half of those people on the highway didn't have anything to do with Breonna's Taylor situation. None of them had any dealings with the George Floyd thing. And ultimately, but in a sense, you're punishing people that had nothing to do with what went on. You're causing, and I'm kind of on the fence about it because I'm like, yes, go, y'all. But on the other end, I'm like, what if I was in that traffic? And what is an emergency? Is it the fire truck that's trying to get through, the person that needs the seizure, or the person that's on the last leg of their job and they can't be late anymore? And here I am in 75, 9 o'clock traffic because some people came out there and put up Black Lives Matter every damn day.
Honestly, like, I'm. This is gonna make me sound like an asshole, but I really don't care about people's feelings, to be honest, especially white people's, because again, the entire point of this is to be disruptive. It's to, you know, make a statement. It's to be sort of in your face, I guess, for lack of a better term. And I will say, again, we weren't on highways. It's not like we were on 75 for 30 minutes. We were on Highway 75 for maybe 5.
Yeah, but you know how 75 is.
Yeah, no, and I know.
Backed up traffic. And
but that's why we chose it, because...
That 6 minutes that y'all was on that highway, and I got to be to work at 9:30, and I just made it out the house for whatever fucking reason.
And
late.
that's a whole nother conversation, though. Like, we're... You know, capitalism, we're brainwashed to believe, you know, that, and I mean, I get it. You know, the struggle is very, very real, especially now in the middle of a pandemic. You got to make that money. You know, you gotta hold your job. But we see so many companies nowadays taking advantage of their workers, you know, treating their workers like shit. And I'm sorry, if your boss is going to fire you for being 5 minutes late due to circumstances beyond your control, then maybe you'll find a better job. And I don't mean that to sound crass. I just mean, like, in the overall scheme of things, like, we've got to stop. We've got to start ditching the brainwashing that we go through in American education, in realizing that we're only playing into this system that doesn't benefit any of us. Like, the system doesn't benefit me, doesn't benefit you. Like, that's why we do what we do, because we want people to realize, like you might not be black, but that doesn't mean the system is your friend. I mean, yeah, if you're white, yes, you already have a leg up, you already have privileges afforded to you, but that doesn't mean the government's your best buddy. That doesn't mean, you know, like, let's be real here. It's us against them.
Yeah, pretty much.
And that's how it is. But I mean, like, again, it's just about it's about making a statement. It's about disrupting. And yeah, we're gonna piss people off. Like, we know that.
Yeah, because I would, like, if I was stuck in that traffic, I'd be pissed off too. And actually, it would make me, if I lost my job that day because of that incident, not only would I be mad, but I'd pretty much be like, man, fuck Black Lives Matter. They made me motherfucking lose my job. Now I'm a black person in America without a job, and during a pandemic, and is Black Lives Matter gonna come, and those three gay ladies are gonna come down from the Black Lives Matter organization throne and give me some money to pay my rent and all of that stuff? It just seems like with that situation and a lot of those, that it would turn people away from the actual thing that y'all are doing, which is only to bring awareness, but awareness at the expense of other people that had nothing to do with it.
That's why when we do actions, we really try not to do actions in predominantly black or brown neighborhoods, because
75 pretty rich, man.
Yeah, exactly. We try and be as strategic as possible, and especially the area we did it right off Haskell. That's a predominantly upper class white area. Yeah. So when we do things like this, we don't just wake up one morning like, oh, we're gonna go block 75. Like, we really try and be strategic with what we're doing, because I don't want to make any black person's life harder. So no, I'm not gonna go to Oak Cliff and like hold up an intersection and like prevent some black people or brown people from getting to their jobs, because we already know that most companies are already discriminatory against black and brown people. But
so you're making these assumptions that because it's in a predominantly upper class white area, that black people wouldn't necessarily be over that way?
No, that's not the presumption I'm making. I'm simply saying, like, when we choose an area, we choose it like I said, that area is predominantly upper white because it's right by Turtle Creek. Yeah. So no, I'm not making the presumption that there aren't black people that live there, but
or work there.
Okay. But like, when you look at that area as a whole, like, there was a reason, like, why that particular area was chosen. Yeah. And besides that, 75 is a busy highway as is. So when we did our banner drop, people, like, before we even stopped traffic, we had the banner drop. So we had people, driving under it, honking, raising their fists. They had a couple people flip them off, and all those people were white. But again, like, it's just about disrupting. And, like, I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say that there aren't black people that are caught up in that, that are inconvenienced. And, like, that's not the intent. But again, the intent is to disrupt daily life as a whole. Like, it's to remind people, that we're here, we're not going anywhere. And especially if white people are, like, if we disrupt a white person's day and they realize, why we're doing it, then that's sort of a victory, because, and
like, it brings awareness.
Right. And, like, I mean, no, like, yeah, there are going to be people that's going to get angry and like, oh, those fucking Black Lives Matter people did it again. Like, yeah, like, I get it. There are going to be people that get pissed off, and they're going to get pissed off no matter what we do. Like, so the way I see it is, if we're going to piss people off, we might as well do it in the right, like, in a good way, in a big way. Yeah. So.
Okay, I got one more question. Okay. Hope I got time. But are you guys going to link up with Save Our Children? Because that's the big thing now. I think that's a lot of the reason why y'all died out. Mm-hmm. Because now it's this whole pedophile ring thing is coming to a head. And what's going on with that? Are y'all going to link up with them and get something going with that?
I'm personally not, simply because there are a lot of great organizations already doing work for that. And I honestly wouldn't really know how to begin. I don't feel like I would be the best qualified to. I wouldn't know exactly how to be effective in that movement. Aside from raising awareness, which I do on Facebook as it is. Yeah. But, like, I will say, when it comes to that movement, that there does need to be a lot of people that does research, because there's a lot of misinformation being spread around out there.
Yeah, Heather was
like
telling me
about,
like
the Wayfair thing, and like.
Yeah, Heather was telling me that it's save. Make sure to say it right on air. Save our children instead of save the children for whatever reason. But yeah, I was just wondering that.
Yeah, again, I mean, my organization in particular, we don't have a set cause that we fight for. Like we're just for human rights in general. Like, you know, if we need to fight for Black people, we will. If we need to fight for Indigenous people, we will. We just sort of want to be where we're needed, where we can be the most effective. But in regards to that, like sex trafficking and pedophilia, I don't really know what we could do that isn't already being done. I don't know what we could do that would be effective.
Yeah. Go ahead on and plug in your social media, anywhere that they can reach you at, and everything that they can do.
So you can find us at Facebook. It's just In Solidarity DFW, and we have all of our social media there. We have a Twitter and Instagram. I believe it's In Solidarity DFW as well for both of those.
And where to get your shirts?
Oh yeah, we are selling our In Solidarity T-shirts. I have a link on our Facebook page for you to fill out a form if you want to buy a shirt. And we will get into contact with you once those sales go live.
Yeah, I'm probably going to buy one of those shirts. Got that little rainbow on there. Anyways, it was great to have you. I'm glad that you was here to, one, school me, two, get all of those questions out and to bring awareness that the march is still going on out there, people. And if you want to support this guy and any of the things that he's doing, then hit up his link, and all of those things that he said will be in the description of my YouTube channel.
Yeah, if you guys want to get involved, we're always looking for more people to come out. So join us.
Okay, and we're out. Thank you.